I'd like to hear a little bit about Larry Nixon, if you have any stories or anything to share about Mr. Larry.
Okay, Larry Nixon. Uh, he joined RT New York. Uh, there he is, much later. Uh, and you see him carrying an RPD light machine gun. And Larry was uncharacteristically aggressive. He wasn't a laid back character at all, but he was convivial and kind of a happy go lucky guy, but he really wanted combat. And going out on the first mission with me, he decided, I guess my team had acquired a reputation for heavy contacts. And so he was armed with a Car 15, and he asked me how many magazines for the Car 15 he ought to bring on the operation. And I gave him, the usual numbers, around 20 magazines. And he decided that he would bring not only the 20 magazines on his web gear, but he would load his rucksack with, I want to say, around 30 magazines. So he was carrying an extremely heavy load. And I said, yeah, I don't think you need to bring that many. And he said, I don't know. We might get pinned down, might get surrounded. I want to make sure that I have, enough ammunition to fight it out. I admired his spirit, and I said, okay. He regretted that decision after he started climbing up those mountains with this burden on his back. He came back and he said, you were right. I should have intuited what you said. I should have kept down to the 21 magazines, one in the magazine well of the Car 15. And I think after that, he would take my advice, irrespective of what his instinct told him. We would come back from an operation, and I was not a social person at all. I spent my time in the team room and reading books. I would occasionally go to the club and have a soda. I would typically bring a paperback book with me and read it. I'd do other things to occupy my time, and there were some other team leaders that I would hang out with, but relatively few. There were only 3 or 4 that I hung out with, and that only intermittently. So I was kind of a loner. But Nixon was not. He was a very social person. We came back from an operation. After he got cleaned up and so forth, he would head to the club and tell tales of daring do. He would tell the story about the operation in some detail, and he'd have all these younger guys with him who are not team leaders, Google-eyed, listening to his account of the operation. He used to love doing that. And he painted me as something like, a master jungle expert and all these other kinds of things. And he kind of enhanced my reputation. It was just, and I had no idea he was doing these kinds of things. But another occasion sticks out in my mind. So We were in stand down again, and I was in our team room on a bunk reading, believe it or not, a comic book. I even remember the name of the comic book. It was The Silver Surfer. And I was reading that, and Nixon comes into the team room and he's all upset because one of his contemporaries on another team, another 1-1, had just gotten killed, a guy on RT Ohio. The guy was handsome, all-American boy. Everybody liked him. And Nixon comes in and says, so-and-so just got killed. And I just flipped over the magazine to the next page and said, is that so? And I caught him out of the corner of my eye that he was stunned by my lack of reaction. His jaw literally dropped down. And he turned around and left the team room. And at that point, when I laid the comic book down on my chest and thought, damn, that's pretty damn callous. I should be feeling something for this poor guy, but I don't. So I picked up the comic book and continued reading again. You developed a real callous for all the casualties we were taking. It was kind of a defensive mechanism for some. A lot of people didn't want to confront the fact that we had such an enormous casualty rate. But it had become so routine for me. It was just another day on the FOB. So I lost track of him after I left. After I went back to the States, he succeeded me as team leader briefly, and then he rotated back to the States and went up back to his home in Jamaica, New York, suburb of New York City. And we lost contact for many years, and he finally tracked me down. And he told me a story that as he was getting ready to leave, like a day or two prior to his departure, he took my RPD light machine gun and he took it over to Recon Company headquarters. This was at night. And at that point, the first sergeant of Recon Company had established kind of like a little bar, a little niche bar at the side of the Recon Company headquarters that was designated for 1-0s. And you could barely fit 5 or 6 people in there, standing up, sitting at the bar, leaning up against the wall. And he gave my machine gun to the first sergeant and said, "This is Wolcoff's RPD. This is a trophy you need to put up on the wall." And that was very touching. I didn't realize how he felt about me. It was, and I didn't realize how highly regarded I was until many years later, actually. There was another episode that was interesting. So while I was on leave, he borrowed my RPD before he got one of his own. And he strap hung on another team. Uh, and they went into a noontime perimeter. There was typically uh, three occasions when a perimeter was established routinely. One was in the about an hour prior to noon, you would establish a perimeter and then conduct, a communications break. You give a sit rep that was relayed from a relay site on a mountaintop in southeastern Laos. Give a sit rep, and then you would eat your noon meal. And then just prior to dusk, then you would move out and go to another location to establish your night defensive perimeter. So those were the two times when you typically establish the perimeter, and they were in the combo break perimeter when Nixon heard something from outside the perimeter, and he was located behind a tree that had a crotch in it. So the trunk diverged in two directions. And he said that he had raised up and looked through the crotch and saw a couple of NVA low crawling up to the towards the perimeter, very close by, within 15 meters. And he put the RPD through the crotch and emptied 100 rounds into these two guys. And he said he never felt so good in all of his life. And at that point, he was absolutely determined to get his hands on an RPD for himself, which is what happened. So those are the only things that I can, recollect about him.